Why Neanderthals failed to develop regional markets during the Great Ice Age. You are standing in a supermarket holding an avocado from Chile and a jar of honey from Western Australia. You tap your phone against a terminal. 3 seconds later, the transaction is complete. You have just exchanged value with farmers, packers, drivers, software engineers, banks, warehouses, and strangers you will never meet. Nobody asked whether your grandfather belonged to the correct valley. Nobody raised a spear because you touched the avocado. Nobody demanded that you marry into the honey producer's family before receiving the job. The entire system works because millions of strangers agree to behave as if trust can travel farther than friendship. Now remove the supermarket, remove money, remove writing, remove roads, remove refrigeration, remove the customer service desk where you can complain because the avocado became soft 12 minutes after you bought it. Travel back 45,000 years into Ice Age Europe. You are standing beside a Neanderthal shelter. In your hand is a stone tool, made from material collected near the camp. It works, but not perfectly. Across 2 valleys, perhaps 20 or 30 kilometers away, another group may have access to better stone. Farther still, another landscape contains pigment shells, wood animal hides, or information that could save your group during a bad season. Can you obtain any of it? The viral answer says no. It says Neanderthals lived inside tiny economic bubbles. They feared every stranger. They never traded. They never transported stone over serious distances. They never built alliances. Then, Homo sapiens arrived, with beads, gifts, enormous social brains, and the world's first regional markets. Neanderthals remained isolated. A winter came. The marketless humans disappeared. The trading humans inherited the earth. It is a powerful story. It is also much cleaner than the evidence. Neanderthals did not leave invoices. They did not leave price lists. They did not leave a carved sign reading, "Golden flint, 2 hides per kilogram, no refunds." Archaeologists usually reconstruct ancient connections from objects. Where did the stone originate? How far did it travel? Was it carried as a raw block, a prepared core, or a finished tool? Did shells move inland? Did pigments cross ecological zones? Do similar tool-making traditions appear in neighboring regions? Does ancient DNA show people moving between communities? Those clues can reveal mobility and connection. They cannot always reveal the mechanism. A stone found 100 kilometers from its geological source may have been exchanged through several groups, or one person may have carried it during seasonal movement, or a family may have migrated, or the object may have passed through marriage, gift-giving, inheritance, theft, scavenging, or an encounter that began peacefully and ended with everybody strongly disagreeing about ownership. Transport is visible. The transaction is usually not. That distinction is the key to this entire story. Neanderthals probably did not create regional markets in the modern economic sense. Neither did the earliest Homo sapiens in Europe. What some Homo sapiens populations appear to have developed more extensively were regional social networks through which people, objects, partners, knowledge, and obligations could move. Those networks were not shops, they were relationships, and relationships may have been the most valuable Ice Age currency of all. Let us begin with the stone. At many Middle Paleolithic Neanderthal sites, most raw material came from nearby sources. That pattern is real. People often use stone available within their local landscape. It makes practical sense. Stone is heavy. Carrying a large useless rock across 30 kilometers of difficult ground is an excellent way to become tired while still owning a large useless rock. Mobile hunter-gatherers frequently obtained material while performing other activities. They moved through hunting territory, encountered a source, selected good pieces, reduced heavy blocks, carried smaller cores or finished tools onward. Archaeologists call this embedded procurement. You do not organize a special international trade mission. You pick up stone because your route already passes near it. This means a high percentage of local material does not automatically prove social isolation. It may reflect landscape use, mobility, availability, tool design, the length of occupation, and the probability that an object was discarded before the person carrying it moved farther away. Even distance is tricky. Imagine a Neanderthal collecting excellent flint 20 kilometers from camp. He carries it all day, uses it repeatedly, resharpens the tool until it becomes tiny. Then, 500 meters before entering the cave, it finally breaks and is discarded. 40,000 years later, an archaeologist finds the fragment and concludes that the stone moved 20 kilometers. Now imagine the same hunter returns with an unbroken tool, keeps it for another month, and drops it at a different camp. The archaeological map changes completely. The social behavior may not have changed at all. This is why raw material distance cannot function like a prehistoric delivery receipt. Still, broad patterns matter. Many Neanderthal assemblages are strongly local or regional. Some Upper Paleolithic Homo sapiens assemblages contain greater proportions of material transported over longer distances. Personal ornaments, including marine shells found far inland, also provide evidence that objects sometimes crossed ecological and social boundaries. By the Aurignacian and especially later Upper Paleolithic periods, archaeologists can identify increasingly visible regional systems of connectedness in parts of Europe. But even here, caution is essential. A shell hundreds of kilometers from the sea is not proof that one hunter purchased it at a river market. The shell may have passed through many hands. Its value may have been symbolic rather than practical. It may have marked identity, marriage, friendship, status, memory, or participation in a shared tradition. Modern economics asks, what was the price? Paleolithic archaeology often has to ask, why did someone carry this inconvenient object so far? That question becomes more important when the object cannot cut meat, scrape hide, or make fire. A beautiful shell in an inland cave communicates something. The problem is that the message was not addressed to us. Now compare two imagined encounters. The first takes place between neighboring Neanderthal communities. A woman arrives from another valley. That is not fantasy. Ancient DNA from Chagarskaya Cave suggests that at least some Neanderthal communities were small, and that women often moved between groups. Movement between communities means information relationships and biological connection also moved. The arriving woman recognizes some gestures and vocal patterns. She knows one person through relatives. She carries a small tool made from stone, not common in the new valley. Nobody opens a market stall. Nobody weighs the tool, but the group has gained material knowledge and a link to another community. That is exchange in a broad social sense. It is not isolation. Now imagine a second meeting. Two mobile groups encounter each other near a river. One group brings hide, the other has high-quality stone. Both groups are cautious. One hunter places a stone core on the ground. Another places dried meat beside it. Everyone steps backward. A child immediately attempts to take both items. An adult retrieves the child. The negotiations continue. There is no universal price, no police, no contract. The value of the exchange depends on the relationship being created or maintained. The first gift may not demand an immediate equivalent return. It may create an obligation. Later, food might be shared. A visitor might receive shelter. A marriage partner might move between communities. Information about animal migration might travel. The market is therefore not a location. It is a memory of who owes whom. And that system becomes difficult when population density is extremely low. Neanderthals lived across an enormous territory, but the number of Neanderthals alive at any one time was probably small. Communities were often separated by large distances. Ancient genomes indicate low, long-term population sizes. Some individuals carried long stretches of homozygosity, reflecting small communities or related parents. At Chagirskia, researchers identified close relatives, including a father and daughter. The genetic pattern suggested a small local community connected to others partly through female migration. This matters because it overturns both extreme stories. Neanderthals were not one enormous happy continental family, but they were not sealed caves containing the same 10 people forever. People moved between communities, genes moved, and when people move, they rarely travel as empty biological envelopes. They carry techniques, stories, references, and opinions about which neighboring group cooks meat incorrectly. A 2026 genomic study of late Neanderthals in Belgium and France found strong regional genetic connections among many individuals from multiple sites. That result again complicates the image of completely isolated bands. Some regional populations were connected. The question is not whether Neanderthals had networks. They did. The question is how dense, stable, extensive, and resilient those networks were. A network can exist and still be fragile. Imagine 5 communities spread across a large region. Community A knows B. B knows C. Occasionally meets D. D has heard unpleasant things about A. If B disappears after a bad winter, A may lose indirect access to the entire eastern side of the network. The stone stops moving. Potential partners stop arriving. News about game routes vanishes. One missing link changes the world. Now imagine a denser network containing more groups, more meeting places, more overlapping relationships and objects that visibly mark affiliation. If one connection fails, several others remain. That difference may have mattered between some Neanderthal and Homo sapiens populations. Not because Homo sapiens possessed magical kindness. Early modern humans were perfectly capable of suspicion, violence, theft, and turning a peaceful gathering into an argument about a missing animal hide. But symbolic objects, shared styles, rituals, and repeated aggregation may have helped extend recognition beyond immediate relatives. A bead can signal membership. A pigment pattern can signal familiarity. A tool style can identify a shared tradition. A story can establish common ancestry between people who have never met. Symbols allow trust to arrive before personal experience. They do not guarantee peace. Modern people wear matching football shirts and still fight each other, but symbols reduce uncertainty. They tell you that the stranger understands at least some of the same social rules. This is where the original script made a second dangerous leap. It tried to explain Neanderthal networks through brain anatomy. Large eyes, large body, more brain devoted to vision and physical control, less brain available for social relationships. Therefore, Neanderthals could manage only 10 relatives, while Homo sapiens could manage 150 trading partners. That cognitive budget hypothesis was proposed. It is not a demonstrated explanation of Neanderthal economics. Later research challenged the use of orbital size to infer social capacity. A skull does not preserve a number showing how many stable relationships its owner maintained. Dunbar's number is not a fossil measurement, and community size is not the same thing as total social network size. 20 people may live together while maintaining relationships with many people elsewhere. You live with far fewer than 150 people. That does not mean everyone outside your house is a terrifying biological invader. The safer explanation begins with demography and geography. Neanderthal population density was low. Their communities were often small. Distances could be large. Climate repeatedly changed habitats and routes. A connection maintained across 2 valleys in 1 century might become impossible when prey moved, rivers changed, or a population disappeared. Building a durable regional network under those conditions is difficult even for highly social intelligent people. You need partners to remain alive. You need predictable meeting places. You need enough population density for paths to cross. You need customs that make encounters survivable. You need objects or memories that identify relationships. And you need the network to survive longer than the individuals who created it. Now, let us enter the winter scene. A Neanderthal hunter sits near a small fire. A stone point has broken. The local material is imperfect, but he is not trapped because his brain cannot understand barter. He may be trapped because the nearest connected community is several days away. The route is covered by snow. One adult is injured. Food stores are low. The group cannot afford to send 2 healthy people on a long journey. A better stone source exists somewhere beyond the ridge. Knowing that does not place the stone in his hand. This is the logistical reality missing from simple evolutionary stories. Trade requires surplus. If every person is occupied with immediate survival, nobody can spend 10 days carrying decorative shells through a mountain pass. Exchange also requires predictability. Will the other group be at the meeting place? Will they have food? Will they remember the obligation? Will the valley be passable? Will the person who established the relationship still be alive? 1 failed journey is expensive. 2 failed journeys can be catastrophic. The hunter tries the local stone. It fractures. He looks at the broken piece. He selects another. That one fractures too. The third produces an acceptable edge. It is not perfect, but it can cut. Neanderthal technology was not a story of people helplessly striking terrible stone. They adapted tool production to available materials. They transported selected pieces. They curated tools. They resharpened edges. They planned movement. Local procurement was often an efficient strategy, not an economic failure. Now move to an early Homo sapiens camp. A piece of distant flint lies beside marine shell ornaments. The scene looks like proof of a market, but the person who carried the flint may have walked to the source. The shell may have changed hands 3 times. The gathering may have been a seasonal aggregation rather than a marketplace. People came to find partners, share information, perform rituals, repair relationships, arrange movement, exchange gifts, copy toolmaking methods, and meet relatives they strongly preferred at a distance. Someone may have brought a bone flute. Someone else brought pigment. A hunter displayed a particularly fine blade. Another hunter claimed to possess an even better blade, but had unfortunately left it at another camp. This ancient gathering could move resources. Its greater value was that it moved risk. Suppose one valley loses its herd. A group with relationships elsewhere has choices. They may relocate, join relatives, receive food, learn another route, exchange labor, or divide temporarily among allied communities. A network turns a local crisis into a regional problem. Without that network, a local crisis remains entirely local and entirely yours. This is why archaeologists often discuss social networks as buffers against environmental uncertainty. Exchange is not merely about obtaining prettier stone. It is about maintaining options. A shell may look economically useless, but if it identifies the person who can receive your family during a famine, it may be more valuable than 100 blades. That does not mean Homo sapiens built a continent-wide welfare system. Networks could fail, groups could refuse help, violence could occur, population declines could break connection. Upper Paleolithic people also disappeared from regions during severe climatic phases. Connectivity improves resilience. It does not make humans immortal, nor can we say the absence of a shell proves the absence of friendship. Organic gifts decay, food disappears, wood disappears, fiber disappears, spoken promises disappear immediately. The archaeological record favors stone and shell because they survive. It may therefore make some networks look poorer than they truly were. A Neanderthal could exchange dried meat information assistance or a marriage partner and leave no object that an archaeologist could confidently label as trade. The invisible economy may have been larger than the durable evidence suggests. So did Neanderthals fail to develop regional markets? In the strict sense, the question is anachronistic. There is no evidence that either population ran markets with standardized prices, specialist merchants' permanent stalls, or anonymous commercial exchanges. Neanderthals did maintain mobility and connections between communities. Some raw materials traveled meaningful distances. Genes demonstrate movement. Regional cultural patterns demonstrate contact. But compared with some later Homo sapiens populations, many Neanderthal networks may have been lower density, less archaeologically visible, and more vulnerable to demographic breaks. That difference could matter enormously. A network does not need to be absent to fail you. It only needs to be too thin at the wrong moment. One adult dies. One community moves. One route closes. One relationship is not renewed. The group beyond the ridge still possesses food, but nobody in your camp has a living connection to them. That is the real Ice Age economic tragedy. Not a species too stupid to trade. A population so sparse that every relationship carried enormous weight. Now consider the final disappearance of Neanderthals. We should not turn exchange into the single cause. Neanderthal populations were already small. Climate instability changed habitats. Homo sapiens entered Eurasia. The two populations competed in some places and mixed in others. Disease may have played a role. Random demographic fluctuation mattered. Interbreeding absorbed part of the population. Different Neanderthal groups disappeared at different times. No final market closed across Europe at midnight. But network resilience could influence how each population responded to pressure. Larger or denser networks may preserve innovations, move partnerships, spread information, replace lost skills, and help groups recover after local disaster. A sparse network can lose all of those functions when only a few nodes disappear. This provides a plausible advantage for some Homo sapiens populations, without requiring Neanderthals to be antisocial or economically incapable. They did not fail because strangers were biologically incomprehensible. They may have faced a harder networking problem, with fewer people, greater distances, and more fragile continuity. Return to the supermarket. The avocado remains in one hand, the honey remains in the other. The modern system appears effortless because you see only the final shelf. You do not see the treaty, ports, insurance, standards, databases, weather reports, roads, contracts, warehouses, refrigeration, and millions of relationships required to keep the objects moving. Remove enough links, and the shelf empties quickly. Your supply chain is not the opposite of an Ice Age social network. It is an unimaginably enlarged version of the same basic solution. Do not depend entirely on one place, one person, one skill, one season, or one valley. Connect your risk to other humans. The Neanderthals understood connection. Their genes prove it. Their movements prove it. Their regional traditions suggested what they may not have possessed, at least not as consistently or densely as some expanding Homo sapiens populations, was enough redundancy, enough alternative paths, enough partners beyond the next missing community. So the next time you tap your phone and purchase food produced across an ocean, do not imagine a superior species inventing trade from nothing. Imagine two human populations solving the same ancient problem at different scales. How far can trust travel? How long can an obligation survive? How many people stand between your family and disaster? Neanderthals did not disappear because they never exchanged a piece of flint. They became vulnerable because in a world of small populations and unstable climates, a connection that existed yesterday could vanish tomorrow. And during the Great Ice Age, the difference between a regional network and a broken chain was sometimes the difference between finding help beyond the ridge and discovering that there was nobody left to ask.